A, B, C. It is Old Metal Rocker 65 here with a collections video. Yes. A band I first heard back in, let's see, what was it? 75, earlier than that, 74, 75, somewhere in there. And loved them ever since. But before we get into that, deep into that, I should say, if you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. You'll get all updates of new videos that come out. Leave a comment if you gotta leave a comment, and hit the like button. Yeah, so again, collections video. It is Golden Earring. Yes, Golden Earring, a band first found out about in early 73, 74, 75, right in that general vicinity. I was, God, what was I would think back in those days, I was, I think in 73, I was 14 years old. And just really starting to really define my music styles, stuff that really I loved a lot of, you know, and it was hard rock. And anywhere from underground to popular hard rock, you know, in the 70s, growing up. Great time to grow up in the 70s, all these new bands that kind of really defined where we are today, I think. The 60s gave us the sound that would evolve, but the 70s to me is where it was defined predominantly. Early, middle, end, I guess. I always like to say. Early was kind of bands that were just starting to come out, making a name for themselves after the 60s bands, you know, kind of going after that style, you know, whether it was hard rock, bluesy hard rock, psychedelic, progressive rock, krautrock, or whatever, you know. The sounds were starting to define themselves. Well, anyway, this band started in the 60s. And with them starting in the 60s, definitely wasn't what they are today. Definitely really pioneered their sound, made their sound their own. Great songwriters, great musicians, and so forth. And I'm talking about Golden Earring. And this is one of the first Golden Earrings. I have since went back to pick up a lot of these albums that were in the 60s. And possibly from 74 back, I worked to kind of add it to my discography. And this one here is Just Earrings. This is the first album that actually came out in 1965. Definitely has that 60s sound, no doubt about it. Young. It was actually 73, which we'll get to, is where I first heard this band. Anyway, and these guys are out of they're a Dutch band, so they're out of Denmark. Probably the biggest exporting band, in my opinion, out of Denmark. Of course, like they say, they were first known as the Golden Earrings. And a lot of this was written in 65. Very raw, definitely 60s recorded music. You can definitely hear it in the recording. You know, a lot of shorter songs, unlike today. But this is number one. Came out in, what was, I said 65. And then we have this one here. A lot of these are originals, or you're probably going to search and search and not find them, or they're beat up and whatnot, you know. But anyway, this is their second album, which was Winter Harvest, and here they changed it to Golden Earrings. You know, they kind of they went from a 5-piece to a 4-piece here. Of course, if you're not familiar, we got George Kooymans, Franz Krossenberg on this particular release, Rinus Gerritsen, and Jaap Egerman. Again, this came out 67, but was put out, re-released, 1,000 of these put out by Music on Vinyl. I'm sure you could probably still get these. But yeah, great stuff here. And then we have this one here. I actually was record digging at a record fair probably a number of years back. I haven't gone to one in a while now, but I came across this for a decent price. This is a Polydor pressing and a German pressing of Golden Earring 8 Miles High Golden Earring. 8 Miles High, if you're not familiar, is a track that's about 19 minutes long. It's actually written by, you know, Roger McGuinn and I can't think of the name of the band. Roger McGuinn and David Crosby. But anyway, yeah, a great version. Almost 20 minutes long. But Golden Earrings. That came out in '69. And then came out also on Music on Vinyl. And this one came out in 1969. Just Golden Earring on the double. Of course, what we're listening to is also Golden Earring, one of the greatest live albums ever. But yeah, 69 for that. And then we have Golden Earring from 1970. This is on Dwarf Records. Show you the label here. I mean, when I bought these were decently priced. This, of course, it's a gatefold, but here's the back. Here's the front. Gatefold edition. You know, to me, this about 1970 is where they really started to hone their heavier sounds. From here forward is where they really took off. Of course, as you can see, this is on the Dwarf record label. Pretty cool label. But yeah, hard to find nowadays, especially the early stuff. But every now and then you'd be surprised, you could probably come across it, you know. But a lot of these that I found were brought in by one person. When I bought a lot of these, same person had dropped these off, and mostly 70 stuff. So that one there was from 1970, and then we have another Music on Vinyl release. They put out a lot of good stuff. It's kind of like Cleopatra Records with the UFO. They predominantly been releasing tons and tons of UFO stuff. Putting all the, we're close to putting all the remaining CDs to vinyl, the studio albums. There's only 2 left. But anyway, so this one here is 7 Tears. It came out in 71. Again, to me, this is where they started to get heavier. But good stuff there. Yeah, sitting here in Minnesota, finally a warmer day. It's, I think, 3 below our high is today. Yesterday it was minus 16 was our high. And the day before it was minus 11 was our high. But we are getting out of that brutal cold and we are moving into more normal temps, mid-20s to 30s. So decided to do a bunch of videos, of course another collections. I don't know. Give me a shout out, where you're from. Write it down so I have an idea. Alright, get back into it here. Now comes Together from 72 also. Music on vinyl. This is a really good album. A lot of their early stuff is really good from like 70, probably from 69 forward up until their biggest one, which will be coming up next year. But again, these are 1,500 copies. You can probably still get these out there. I don't know how they sold, but great stuff. Again, from 72. And now was where I first started to hear this band's music in 73, of course. And of course on rock radio, still plays today. I don't really ever get tired of that song. Of course, you know, it's one of those bands. There are certain bands and certain songs that you really never get tired of hearing. It's just something about them, you know, whereas some other songs that you hear, you could care less if you hear it ever again, you know. I'm sure you guys watching are similar like that. Anyway, this is where this band really took off and moved ahead quite a bit. But this is Golden Earring with Moontan. Now this here, this is the US pressing. Of course, you know, we got the circle and around the ear there, and you know, it's just, it would help if it was right way up. So anyway, Golden Earring. Of course, Radar Love came off of this album, and that was the biggest hit they ever put out. There were some other ones. There was one other one we'll get into a bit later, but Golden Earring, this album right here, this is the American pressing. This came out on MCA Records. Now this is the European pressing, which, of course, in the 70s you could do that. Scorpions did it with Virgin Killer, and they also did it with, can't think of the album. They're in the back seat. So nothing was censored until what's-her-name got involved. But this is the European pressing on also MCA Records. You know, a lot of these are, the track listings on these are, this only has 5 tracks. I think the US pressing maybe had, no, it did have 5 tracks as well. So, but anyway, the Euro right here and the US. And after that, it really kind of took off, but there was also this album here. which there is very, very little information on this album here. The Golden Earrings, you know, it's early obvious, but I don't see it on Discogs. I don't see this album on Discogs. Probably a different picture. I looked and I just don't see it, but anyway. Early release, I found this in a record store search and picked it up fairly cheap. So anyway, some early stuff. And then probably my favorite of all the Golden Earrings, this one right here. This is, to me, their best album. Not that Moontan wasn't a bad album. There are a lot of good tracks on there, but this one here kind of gets put in the rear view mirror. This, if you've never heard this Switch album from Golden Earring, man, this is a great album. It flows so great, one song into another on both sides. I mean, for side A, you start off with how it starts off slow and then it speeds up. Of course, that's intro plus minus Absurdio, and then how the guitars come in on Love is a Rodeo, and then the switch, Ce Soir, Kill Me, and then on side B, you got Tons of Time, Daddy's Gonna Save My Soul, Troubles and Hassles, and The Lonesome DJ. So, the heaviest, I think, in their catalog. This one came out in '75. And then we had Contraband. I don't have this on vinyl. I thought I did. Unless it's mixed into some albums that, you know, during the move got mixed. And I've been going through a lot of them and finding some stuff that I have to pull and move and stuff like that. But it's never over. Especially if you're a vinyl collector or a CD collector. It's never over. You're always sorting. You're always going through your albums. So anyway, this one here is on CD, Contraband from Golden Earring. That came out in '76. After Switch, to me, this is kind of a letdown. I thought the music lacked a little bit. The lyrics really didn't hit off as like Switch did, you know, and Moontan and the stuff previous. You know, still not a bad, but not one of my favorites. And that came out in '76, as well as this album, kind of an unknown gem in their catalog. You know, of course you had Contraband, or this one came out right after Switch. Contraband came after this album, To the Hilt. Yeah. This is a good, solid, hard rock album from Golden Earring. To the Hilt. I mean, it's got some great track. Why Me, Face Dancer, To the Hilt. They love doing longer tracks, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, you know, even 8 Miles High, 20-minute version. But some of these, like the Violins, is 10 long. Couple tracks, Why Me, 7 minutes. Nomad, 7 minutes. 7 tracks, but solid hard rock. I mean, just kind of an album nobody talks about. Up next, which we're listening to, is a live album. Probably one of the best live albums, in my opinion, of all time. In my top 10 of all time. Just a killer concert. And I'm talking about Golden Earring Live, which came out in '77. And there were a lot of great live albums that came out. in the 70s. This one, Blue Oyster Cult, On Your Feet, On Your Knees, Scorpions, Tokyo Tapes, Judas Priest, Unleashed in the East. I mean, just some great live albums. And this was no exception. This was a great live album, as you can hear it in the background. But yeah, it's, I mean, they're in their prime, you know, other than maybe Contraband. These guys are just putting out great hard rock in the 70s, you know, and they're doing it under the radar, you know, from, of course, they were just that step below the, you know, where you're supposed to be, but back in them days, but I don't think they cared. And then we got another great album that kind of flies under the radar for a lot of people. And this is Golden Earring, Mad Love. Wow. Great album. Hard, heavy. I Need Love. I mean, side one is just all killer. I Need Love, Sulene, great track. Sulene, man, great track. Mad Love's coming. Side two, Bombay, Fighting Windmills, Con Man, Time's Up. Fantastic. Great hard rock. And this came out in 77. You know, I mean, great stuff. Great stuff, man. Pick it up. And then in 78, we continue on with this killer album. This, I think this was a promo, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this is the Golden Earring, Grab It for a Second. It's got the MCA 703. I think this was a promo. But of course, this one, when it came out, this one came out in 79 on MCA. Predominantly, the early stuff was MCA works, but you know, not as heavy as the previous, but still a good album. Grab It again, or Against the Grain, Cell 29, great stuff. I mean, if you love Golden Earring, you know, this is some good stuff to pick up. So, and then an era that I really liked as well, and this was from 1980. So they were putting out an album a year just about in the 70s. Put out Long Blonde Animal, the title track, great track. It leads off side A, and this is a promo as well. Prisoner of the Night, this come out in 1980. Now this is on Polydor. This cover kind of reminds me of, or this little version of this corner of this cover kind of reminds me of, I think it's Angel City, one of their, I think, what is it, Dark Room? But anyway, great. I mean, still a good album, still cranking out good stuff. Of course, I forgot to mention Barry Hay also came into the band way back, but it wasn't on the early stuff. But definitely he's been on predominantly everything after the earlier stuff. What did I say? That was 1980. This is another live album. This is second live from Golden Earring. It came out in 81, so I mean 4 years between live albums. Another great live album. Not as, I don't think it's as good as the first one, but still, I mean, they're at their peak, in my opinion, or close to it. And then, of course, we have from 1982, of course, I'm sure everybody knows this album, I'm sure. A couple tracks, radio, got a lot of airplay even back in MTV day, or not MTV, but Headbangers Ball Day, Golden Earring, and the Cut album from '82. Of course, this had Lost and Found, Twilight Zone, which was probably outside of Radar Love, their second biggest hit. You know, this was probably their biggest selling album, I believe, to date. They're on Polygram, 1982. You know, great stuff. Love that album. And then we have the News album from Golden Earring, Northeast Southwest. So this one came out, let's see here, in 84, a Polydor. Again, you know, not as strong as their 73 and upwards album, you know, with maybe minus Contraband, but you know, this one, I don't know, it just didn't really grab me like the other stuff, you know, but still a good album. Still play it every now and then. And then we have also another live album from 84. Golden Earring, Something Heavy Going Down. And this is actually a really good live album. Of course, it features Twilight Zone on there, so I like this better than their second live, but their first live is still the best. And this is really good as well. You know, it has Long Blonde Animal, Twilight Zone, Radar Love, Something Heavy Going Down, Enough Is Enough, Mission Impossible, Future, and you know, Golden Earring. What do you say? Killer stuff. What did I say? 84. Yeah, 84. This came out on 21 Records. And then we had Bloody Buccaneers on CD. And I don't believe this has been reissued. I don't know if this is, it might be on vinyl. It might be. I'm not positive. Anybody help me? I haven't really looked into seeing if this was on vinyl. But this is Bloody Buccaneers from 94. So there was kind of a lull for them in the mid-80s up until 90s. It's an okay album. Not one of my favorites. And then they had also kind of a greatest hits, which was the continuing story of Radar Love. Kind of, like I say, a best of. But anyway. And then we move on up here. They had gotten back together. Well, there was still a few minor, smaller albums they put out, but you know, a lot of it they didn't reform again or put out something good until about 92 when they put out let's see, what was that one? Mixed up here a little bit. Anyway, this was, there's Fully Naked, and then you have, let's see, I'm confused a little bit here. The Naked Truth. And then there is also, what is it? Fully Naked, I believe. The Naked Truth and The Complete Naked Truth, which is this one here, The Complete Naked Truth. Put out by Music on Vinyl, 1,500 copies, killer release, kind of on gold. Let's see, what was that one? That one was 1998, I believe. Yeah, so a lot of these are, God, almost coming up, let's see, 08, 18, coming up on 30 years here. Well, not this one, but well, not bad, 3 years away, so, but yeah, good stuff here. And then we had Sweat before, or which was before that, which came out in '93, also on Music on Vinyl. A lot of these probably were only on CD, like I said, like Bloody Buccaneers. Not a bad album, you know. But you definitely are older, so, you know, you might lose a little bit of your songwriting and, you know, great songs, but still, they're together, they're putting out great music, you know. Actually, you know what, I just got mixed up here. There's the Naked. So Naked, Fully Naked. So anyway, yeah, this on Music on Vinyl. Again, a lot of these songs now are, you know, they're writing shorter songs, so there's more music or more tracks, 7, 15 tracks, whereas I like a lot of 7, 8 minute, or 7 tracks, 8 tracks on a vinyl, you know, 4 per side, maybe 5 and 4 or whatever. But anyway, so we just got to switch this with this to this, and there we go. All right, guys, we are starting to get down there a little bit. And then we have from 2003, also Music on Vinyl, it is Golden Earring, Millbrook, USA. And Music on Vinyl, I have number 509. I don't even know if you'll be able to get these anymore. This was my number when I first bought it, 1,500 out there. You might be able to, but I don't know. But, you know, it's a good album. Definitely is Golden Earring, you know, of course, you know, we know the better stuff, but this is still a good album. And then we have a really good album, a harder edged album, I think, for later in their career, and we're talking about Tits and Ass. I first got this on CD. This came out in 2012, you know, and then it came out on vinyl through Music on Vinyl. And this, you want this over the CD. I mean, I have both because I have a CD player in my truck, so then this is 1,000 copies. And I have number 510, so they're probably out of print by now. But 2012 brought you Tits and Ass. And then in between there, we have this 10-inch Alive album, the Hague Golden Earring. I picked that up for Music on Vinyl. Mini album, red. But yeah. And then we had, and that was, let's see, what was that? That was 2015. And then I heard rumblings after that they weren't going to really kind of cut down their touring, but they were going to do limited engagements, in which they have, and then they have since retired, but I do have some info coming up about that. And then we have from 2022 is, you know, hard to read that. You Know We Love You on CD. And kind of a hits album with a live DVD in there, so, you know, it's good. Check it out. We have a couple more here, guys, and then we have a couple of, I have this 12-inch promo from '86 called Why Do, both on the A side and B side. Blowing out, digging. And then well, actually I found this, my first one I had originally, I found this in a record store in Duluth, Minnesota back in, I believe, it was either from 78 through 1981 when I lived up there. I don't know which year I found it, but every payday I would usually get paid from the Coast Guard. And I would immediately walk downtown from where I was stationed, which was just right over the lift bridge in Duluth, Minnesota at the Coast Guard station. Downtown was probably eight blocks, and downtown had 4 record stores. They had one which was called The Last Place on Earth, which was a head shop, so they sold bongs, albums, 7-inch, magazines, anything marijuana related, music related, head shop. They sold a lot, they had a lot of imports. And this is where I found this. But I would go to these 4 record stores every payday, and if I could make it up on the hill, I would make it 5, but if I didn't have a ride, so I was walking, so I didn't have access, maybe a bus or something, but so there were 4, and they were all different stores. You know, one carried a lot of imports, used stuff, one carried a lot of newer releases, a lot of obscure stuff. One was more of the popular, heavier stuff that was on the radio, you know, and then there was another one that was kind of a darker underground place. But anyway, that Last Place on Earth, I came across this golden earring. And this is a Braille album. On the back, it's on Braille. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, but right in through here in this square or this rectangle is all Braille. And this is absolutely a great album. Jangaline, man, great track. All Day Watcher, She Flies on Strange Wings, which we're listening to now. And Avalanche of Love. The classic lineup of George, Barry, Rinus, and Cesar. Let's see what this one had to come out. Let's see, what year did this? Doesn't say on the album, but I think it was like, not gonna say it. Anyway, I think it was in mid-70s this came out. And I found another decent copy of this, especially the back, the Braille, the impressions on a lot of these are so collapsed that you can't really feel it. But this one here, I found a decent copy where it can actually still feel the Braille on the back of this. But fantastic album. And the last one here, guys, is kind of a compilation, a gem import, and this is what I've always used to see at this one record store in Duluth, was this on a lot of albums, and I found a lot of great stuff, a lot of underground stuff. Budgie, White Witch, Trapeze, Rare Hendrix, just Legs Diamond, a lot of stuff like that. But this one I've kind of found there too. This is Rock Sensations, Golden Earring, German release. This is some early stuff from it's from a few albums actually. Tracks are, it's from 8 Miles High. It's got Moontan, Sing My Song, Switch, Best of Golden Earring Together. So it's off a bunch of different albums, but man, great stuff. Like I say, the early stuff, not the real early, but from about 70 upwards, you know, where they started to get heavier. But from 73 up is really probably the prime Golden Earring era to listen to, up into about 83. So anyway, guys, that is my collections video. Hope you enjoyed that. If you got any comments, leave them below and let me know where you're from. Take care, everybody.